perfect prospect pairing for the 2025 NFL Draft. Ohio State wide receiver Emeka Egbuka and East Carolina cornerback Shavon Revel both find themselves matched up perfectly with two AFC teams. We're going to discuss this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. DP, today's show, man, we are doing perfect pairings. We're picking a prospect. We picking an NFL franchise, and we're telling you why this needs to happen and why it could be mutually beneficial. Then we're going to talk about the biggest draft storyline that they have out there, and then we're going to wrap this thing up with what? Dames, dudes. Yes, it's my favorite segment. My name's not on it, but it's my favorite segment. We're putting DP on a hot seat, ask him if he's going to kick these guys out the club or keep them in the club. DP, let's get this thing started with perfect pairings.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Perfect prospect pairing, Keith. I'm going to one of the top cornerbacks in the 2025 NFL draft class. But even though he's not healthy, he's still one of the top guys when he was. Shavon Revel. Keith, and when I looked at this young man, I watched this tape this past weekend, this past Friday. I was like, I got to get eyes on him. Just kind of, I want to really like dive into what he was able to put on tape this year. And when you look at it, it's from Eastern Carolina, 6'3", 195, Keith, I think the perfect pairing for him, even in the first round, even though he's coming off the ACL, is the Indianapolis Colts. I'm taking him to the AFC. Was that AFC South? Yes. AFC South. Yep. I'm taking him to the Colts. If this defense has gotten better as the season has gone on, and so what that tells me is that we might not see a firing of Gus Bradley as the DC. And if Gus Bradley's not fired, and they're going to run that same scheme, I think that scheme, like that kind of mix and match of zone, man, like that mixture and how Gus Bradley plays, I think Shavon Revel would be perfect for it, right? They drafted Juju Brents, who's battled injuries early on, stuff like that. You want to see him stay healthy because you know we saw what he could do up close and personal at the Senior Bowl in 2023, right? Shavon Revel, when I watched him, I said, okay, this is a guy that either you're going to play him as a pure zone corner or you're going to let him you're going to have to deal with setting the tone and hoping that the refs don't throw some flags early in reps because he's very physical and handsy at the line of scrimmage. But he's got some of that hip stiffness that you see in those taller, bigger corners. When I watched him body type wise, he looked like a little more muscular version of Sauce Gardner, where you got arm length, be able to physically jam guys, get hands on, be grabby, be physical, but he could drop off in the zone. He wants to protect his hip, wants to protect the gait and how quickly he opens his hips. That's why he wants to dictate the pace, dictate the action, and everything like that. I think putting him in that defense with their safeties, with Kenny Moore, their pass rush, Latu, year 2, and Kwity Paye, and then even some of the guys that got hurt earlier this year being healthy for a full season, everything. I think he could be, and he's got decent ball skills. I think that I would like to see him kind of improve on just overall catching the football. Like he puts himself in position, right? But he only he had 2 interceptions this year before getting hurt, and he had an interception last year. I think that and he had a touchdown that he one of the picks he took for a pick 6. I think there's upside for him catching the football. Want to see him do better at it, but I think putting Shavon Revel to the Indianapolis Colts give them a potential CB1 for that Gus Bradley scheme if Gus Bradley is still the DC this offseason.
Yeah, I think in that scheme, DP talking about zone, right? Cover three, doing different things like that. Shavon would be a really good asset, right? Like that, that'll be, like you said, the perfect pairing, right? Because you're matching the skill set with the scheme, and that usually tends to good results. And like you talked about with Sauce, right? Cover three, the skill set with the scheme, you get good results there. So I actually like that. With Shavon, even when I watched him in the summer, I'm just trying to see where I want to slate him, right? Like, cause like outside of injury, right? Like removing injury, I think I still had like a early three on him. So like like a 79.5, what we would do at the draft network, somewhere around there for him. So I think if the Colts can grab him, probably somewhere around the same area that they grabbed Julius Brents, right? I think in the second
The
round.
second round. Yep.
Yeah, round. I think he could be in a good spot. Now, the benefit for him is that hey, this corner class as of now is not looking to be the most high end talented. So even through the ACL, right, like he can find himself in a good position. He's talking about everybody cornerback too, right? Benjamin Morrison, him being injured also, right? A lot of this stuff is gonna come down to medicals and how that stuff is going to get cleared. DP, I'm gonna go with this, man. I'm gonna go with one guy that's playing some really good football, right? In a situation that I know for sure I didn't predict happen, and that was Bo Nix playing good football with the Denver Broncos. I know we talked about it on the podcast, just as far as Denver potentially being one of the worst landing spots for a quarterback, right? Like if it was going to
Yep.
have any type of functionality to it, it was going to be because of Sean Payton and his ability to run an offense. And I guess that's what we're getting. And so the perfect pairing for me would be getting him Emeka Egbuka, right? The wide receiver from Ohio State. A guy that can do the run after the catch
I
stuff and
like
take
that.
those short passes and convert them into long gains and kind of also he can take the top off, right? So he can work in the two portions of the field that Bo likes to work, right? Throw the deep ball or throw the short stuff and be able to convert it to it. And I think that would be a good kind of range for Emeka to also go right now if the Denver Broncos land somewhere in between 15 and 25, right? Go ahead and take a
Yeah.
swing on a guy that's played a lot of football, a lot of high-end football, and he could be a good piece for that Denver Broncos offense.
That's a great fit, Keith. I like that simply because remember they had Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton
Yeah,
and Jerry Jeudy. Tim Patrick got hurt back to his ACL then the Achilles. And I think he's
Achilles.
at the deep lines. They might have found that new Tim Patrick and Devon Vele that they drafted. And he's like
Out
a
of Utah.
26-year-old rookie out of Utah. And he's 6'5, like 215, 220, and everything like that. You pairing two big body receivers, Vele and Cortland Sutton, and now you put a Emeka Egbuka in to kind of be what you wanted Jerry Jeudy to be, that slot machine, that route runner,
Yep.
like flip the chains type of guy. Third downs, he's the security blanket. That's who I'm looking for. It's 3rd and 6, and he becomes Bo Nix's favorite target in those situations. And Emeka Egbuka is a guy that understands and just a really good route runner, knows how to get to his landmarks, can win versus one-on-one against man, but he absolutely eats against zones because he knows how to read the leverage drop of defenders, get to the void, find the void, get to it, settle in. And then he showcased more than enough toughness after the catch to be able to make guys miss, fight through arm tackles, but also working the horizontal explosives on those deep over routes, those deep crossers, those deep end breakers at 15 yards. And we know Bo Nix has more than enough arm to take those type of throws and complete them, right? Drive that ball between the hashes at 15, 20 yards on those end breakers. Man, I think putting Emeka Egbuka, because I think either way, you got to, like, you see what you have in Bo Nix, and he's proven to be a good asset. Now build around him, whether it's a tight end or another receiver to help flush out and fill out this receiving core. Keith, I like that. Emeka Egbuka, Cortland Sutton, Devon Vele, bring in Marvin Mims as the isolated deep
Yep.
shot guy. Oh, you also have his best friend from Oregon, Troy Franklin, there as well. You have enough mixture of speed, route running, and size. Yeah, I like that a lot. I like it a
Yep.
lot.
Just to help round out that wide receiver core with DP. Let's keep this thing going and flowing. And coming up next, man, we're going to talk about what is the biggest draft storyline today. We're going to get into that conversation coming up next.
Missing someone this holiday season and want them to be a part of your festivities from afar? Do your loved ones live far away and wish they could be close to you? Well, we have the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. Invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription required. Swipe through photos, tap to see new photos sent, and tap the heart button to say thank you. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NFL. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NFL. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch or an urge in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. All you need to do is just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, if you get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. To get in on the action, that's FanDuel.com to join today. Guys, it's very simple. You don't want to miss out on a deal like this. So never waste a hunch and make every single moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Biggest draft storylines after week 13 of college football last week, Keith, the quarterbacks continue to let us down again. We keep trying to just try to hold out hope that these guys are, they're going to play better. They're going to find consistency. And, our guy, one guy that we both liked them on film. I still do. Curtis Rourke. And it wasn't really even all him. It wasn't
all him, but it didn't help, right? And that's you wanted that to kind of be the statement game to where it helped and be
it highlighted some of his deficiencies in that
game. Yeah.
You started with the crazy about it.
The guy that transferred in from the smaller school, like that type of situation.
Ohio State heated him up after that first drive, because I watched that first drive live and I watched it on tape, and I was like, yeah, I see why they started blitzing. I saw exactly why they started blitzing, because they couldn't get home with 4 at first, and when they couldn't get home, he was comfortable in the pocket. He was dealing. He was getting the ball down the field. When he was kept clean, he got the ball efficiently out of his hands. After that first drive where they scored, Ohio State and Ryan Day and that defensive staff said, nah, we're sending pressure. Sonny Styles, Cody Simon off the second level, them linebackers, we're sending 5 to 6. And he did, and I think we talked about it, right? It's not always about the physical tools. A lot of times it's from the neck up. How much ball have you played? How much intelligence do you have playing a position? But then there are situations where you got an unblocked defender. Can you make that guy miss? And Curtis Rourke couldn't. They kept getting the free runner on him, man. And I was like, yeah, this is then the special teams, the block punt, they got him, gave up points, and a punt return to Caleb Downs. I was like, yeah, this game is getting out of hand, and I was like, this game about to be over. It's not even about to be. This game is over.
It's over with. Yep.
Find a drive, and then, a game where I think for me, Keith, when I looked at the Oklahoma-Alabama matchup, the way Oklahoma, because all the injuries, I was like, man, Bama about to run away with this.
Yeah, I mean, everybody thought that was going to be a blowout, right? Everybody thought Bama was going to win by 30, 40 points.
And then I looked and I was like, Milroe, what's going on, big dog? 12 of 26, 46% completion, 162 yards passing. He averaged 6.2 yards per attempt, and he finished the game with 3 interceptions. And I was just like, what is happening right now? Now we know that Brent Venables is a good DC, good play caller defense. Yep. They got some guys on defense. Talk about Billy Bowman and Ethan Downs and Danny They got guys. Don't get it twisted. But I did not expect a performance like that from Milroe. And that, Keith, I want to ask you this because I've had this conversation with some other people. Should Milroe go back to school?
Should he go back to school? I don't have a great answer right now. I just don't. I mean, and the reason why is this, that there are a bunch of highs and lows, right, with what he does, right? And the highs are really, really good, right? And then the lows is question marks. And it almost seems like, okay, if he starts hot, he's going to have a really good game, right? If not, then there are going to be some questions and concerns. I think there's so much that goes into the Jalen Milroe conversation. Like I said, I think you start to look at this wide receiver core, right? Like, is this wide receiver core, that good, right? And then the mistakes he has, is that something that's coachable in the NFL, right? Or does he need, or even, are you going to get a different result if he comes back, right? Because I think at this point you have a large enough sample size of Jalen Milroe and what he can do, right? Because you watch the throws against Wisconsin and you're like, oh man, that might be pick 101, right? Like he can go number 1 overall. You watch him run a football against LSU, you're saying, yeah, this guy's a dynamic athlete. But then you watch the games in between that, the Tennessees, the Oklahomas, right? Last year he had a couple games to where it was just like, it was just awfully confusing as far as his evaluation. I don't know if him going back to school would necessarily solve everything. I think that's the question that I have, is because at this point the sample size is big enough to where you kind of know what he is, and is it just repeat stuff? And then that's why I kind of go back to the Jalen Hurts conversation, is because if you watch Jalen Hurts some games at Bama, right, you'd be like, that guy might be a 3rd, 4th round pick. But then also you watch him a couple games at Oklahoma, you're like, hey, that's really good. But then you watch him when we played him in the Peach Bowl, it was just like, yeah, that's not it either, right? Like, so it was just kind of a Jekyll and Hyde situation, even with Jalen Hurts. I wonder, I would say this, that he's getting closer to being a situation-specific player. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Just like with his skill set and tools and things like that. But I also want to jump all the way into the film to see what they were doing offensively, because I told you last year I watched, and we talked about this during the summer, right? When we did summer scouting, I was watching their wide receivers get locked up. And that's just being completely honest. Like, and the guy that transferred, Isaiah Bond, right? And you've seen so much of what he can do, but also seen the question marks too, right? Like, I just don't know. Like, I don't know if this, like, we have to ask ourselves, in 3 years, when we look at this wide receiver core, will this be the same wide receiver core that Tua had, right? When they had Jalen Waddle, Jerry Jeudy, like, they just had 4 Lambos just out there running. So it's a bunch of different things that I think is going to go into the Jalen Milroe conversation. Speaking of quarterbacks, I guess I'll probably flip it back and ask you a question. Is there a chance that we don't get 2 quarterbacks in the first round? Like, that we get less than 2? Like, have you considered that part of it? Because I go back to the 2022 draft. Was it 2022? 2022 or 20?
Yeah,
I think it was 22.
Kenny Pickett draft.
Kenny Pickett. And I think that we felt pretty good about, there's enough quarterback needy teams, and that what's our guy Malik Willis would go in the first round also, and he didn't go to the 3rd. Like, we thought all of those quarterbacks would kind of get pushed up, right? Desmond Ridder probably go in the second. Malik Willis will go to back end of the first, right? Kenny Pickett went about what his grade was, like pick 20, I think, something like 18 or 20, I believe. So is there a chance that shifts the other way, that we only get one? Like, are we sure that Cam and Shador, even though they're the best quarterbacks in his class, or are they going to be first round consensus grades, and that they'll go in the first round for sure?
I mean, not necessarily. I don't think it's a given. You know what I mean? Like, especially, like, it's going to vary from team to team. Like, there's already, like, I talked to a scout for, I won't say what team it was, but he told me, he was like the front office is worried about Coach Prime. You know what I mean? It's like, will he be like the LeVar Ball? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like,
process.
God, don't do that to Coach Prime. You know what I mean? Like, don't put Coach Prime in that space, right? Because he's done more. His resume, like, it's a total different resume, right? But, like, I think at the end of the day, like, there are going to be some teams that say, okay, well, does either one of these quarterbacks play our brand of football, right? Do they fit what we want to do? And I think, again, with the Coach Prime situation, like, people are going to wonder, like, there are going to be certain teams that are going to be like, hey, I don't know if we want to deal with Coach Prime being, because he's vocal. He's a vocal, supportive dad. I'm not going to knock the man for it. So it's like, he just has a huge platform when he does it. right? Because he's Deion Sanders. People
Mm-hmm.
listen to him.
Yep.
So it's like if you can't compartmentalize and like rationalize that, like then no, don't draft him, because if it's going to be a headache for you or you're going to have a headache trying to deal with it, then I get it. I could see a situation where maybe that repeats itself and everything. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. And that's why I'm hoping, I was hoping for Milroe to be consistent, close the season out strong, right? For one of these, even Jackson Dart, like just be consistent. Like that's the main thing with these guys. Like there's
Curtis
no
Rourke,
consistency.
right? So Howard to give us a 400-yard game. Somebody,
man. It's just like these defenses are driving you guys crazy, and we're seeing it. That's why for me, like even with the Milroe thing, I'll say this: I would tell him heavily consider it going back. And that was the reason why remember last year it was like his first year with that Tommy Reese offense. First of all, the offense didn't fit him at all. You know what I mean? Now you in the second year as a starter, brand new offense with Kalen DeBoer. I say anything you go back, you of course assess like, hey, coach, what are we doing? Like if you got concerns about the receivers and everything, like, hey, bro, you are one of the better quarterbacks and biggest names in college football. Do like the rest of these cats do. Go recruiting yourself. Go call up somebody, work out with some dudes. You know how that stuff go, Keith. They have an individual like summertime or off-season throwing session. Hey, bro, I'm telling you, we can work this out. We could use you in our team. And now you got yourself 2 new additions to go with Ryan Williams, you know what I mean? And just continue to bolster that situation. But I think another year in the offense actually could help him, because then he's like the offenses. He's got that mastered. The game's fully slowed down for him to be a 3-year starter. And I just think it's very volatile, Keith, even to go in the league now, because we've seen how they handle athletic raw quarterbacks. Like we've seen how they handle it. I would just tell them, hey, heavily consider it. And I wouldn't even be like, hey, like how we talk about Connor Wegman. Like no, don't transfer. If you go back to Kalen DeBoer. Like work, like really study the film, see where your shortcomings were last year, and iron that out this offseason. This is because what was he doing this offseason, Keith? He was trying to learn the offense and get better. Okay, now you know the offense. Take another year and just get better. And I think we might, if he does that, we could see a big jump from him, because then he'll be a well-seasoned 3-year starter. Games moving slow, and he's able to play at full speed and not be thinking, is this guy in the right spot? Is he running the route the right way? Am I seeing it right? More so now he's just playing free. And I outside of that Georgia game, that's the only game as a passer I've seen him play freely, where he wasn't thinking, he wasn't in his own head. He was like, he saw it, he ripped it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, the Wisconsin game was kind of like that. Like he let it rip in the Wisconsin game. And that's why I say, DP, I think with Jalen is going to come down to, I think with him, and we're going to have to do it for all these quarterbacks because of the highs and lows, is that we're going to have to take a step back and take the entire sample size, right? Like we can't go week to week. We just got to wait till it's over and be like, okay, this guy did this, right? Like his career, because week to week, you'll be in and out, right? Like, honestly, you just flat out mentally tired. That's where I'm at this point. I'm tired. Every time I think I know something, it turns out that I don't know. This is a crazy draft process. But like I said, I enjoy it. This is not for the mentally weak. This draft class right here. You better be locked and loaded. But DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing. Coming up next, man, we're gonna talk about dames, dudes. Yes, I said it. My name not on it, but it's my favorite segment. We putting DP on the hot seat, asking if these prospects are in the club, out the club. Coming up next.
Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, 40 FREE free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and the history of the Constitution, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go even deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/locked-on to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/locked-on to register. You don't want to miss out on a free deal like this, guys. So all you need to do is go to Hillsdale, hillsdale.edu/locked on. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. If you're new here, dames, dudes, Keith has 5 prospects from week 13 to ask me.
Yep.
DP, are they a dames dude, or do they got to get back in the car, go back to their dorm room, to their apartment off campus, wherever they live, and try again in week 14? Keith, let's get it going.
Let's get this thing going. First up, we have Louisville. Let's we say edge rusher slash interior defensive lineman, kind of a hybrid guy along his defensive line. Ashton Gilliard. DP's in the club, out the club.
Oh man, he had a good week this week, Keith. And this is a guy, I mean, I've talked about him multiple times. Like, he reminds me of Marshawn Nealon, who went to the Cowboys last year, similar build and everything, similar games as well. But coming out, in the game, this past Saturday, Ashton Gilliard, 2 sacks, 2 QB hits, 3 pressures. He had a pass rush win rate of 25.8. He got back there. He was a menace and a terror. And like you said, he is kind of a hybrid or a tweener. He can rush from the edge, but also he has enough get off and strength and power in his hands and leg drive to rush against guards on the inside as well. So he gives you that kind of inside out versatility for a creative defensive coach. Man, yeah, he's in the club. He had a big time game this past Saturday.
Okay, cool. Ashton Gilliard, you made it in, my brother. Next up, running back from Iowa, Caleb Johnson, in the club, out of the club.
Man, coming off of week 11, I think they had a bye in week 12, and I think that was needed. That bye was needed, Keith, because he had 18 for 49 and 1 touchdown against UCLA in week 11. He bounced back big time, 35 carries, 164 yards rushing, almost over 4.7, around 4.7 yards per carry, and he had a rushing touchdown. He had 113 of his 164 yards came after contact. Physical downhill guy, 6 foot 225. One of my favorite running backs, especially on day 2 in this class and for the draft. We talk about the Cowboys and different teams like that need to get a physical presence in their run game. Caleb Johnson, he's a dames dude, and he's somebody that should be selected on day 2 for those teams that need a new running back going into 2025.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I like Caleb a lot too. I have a late day 2, early day 3 grade on him. Think he could just flat out tote the rock, right? He gonna be one of those workhorse type of backs, like we talked about the Titans with yesterday's podcast. And being that complimentary piece, he would be another complimentary piece to like a Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard. Like, he would go well, I feel like, in that type of situation. DP, next up, I think I know which way this one is gonna go. Indiana quarterback Curtis Rourke. Is he in the club, out of the club?
Yeah, he's been in the club all season, Keith, up until this point. No, he's not in the club this week. He was 8 for 18 in that game against Ohio State. And we talked about Ohio State did a great job pressuring him and just getting after him, Keith. He was literally his numbers under pressure. He was under pressure like 31% of his dropbacks. He was 2 for 7. 1 complete. Oh no, sorry. He was 1 of 2 on 7 dropbacks while he was under pressure for 2 yards. Right, when he was just pressured, like when he was blitzed, he only completed 2 passes. Like, he only completed 2 passes against the blitz and everything. He was sacked 4. All 5 of his sacks came when he was under pressure. He was simple as that. He got all 5 of his sacks came under pressure. 4 was when he was blitzed. That game was not all on him, but it just highlighted where his shortcomings are as a quarterback prospect. And that game might have knocked him down to that 4th round range, Keith, for some teams, because it's like, hey, do you have the upside to be a high 2nd round, maybe 3rd round, but do you have the physical tools or the upside, something for else besides of accuracy, ball placement, and experience for us to buy into? That game might have really hurt his draft stock.
Yeah, I think it did too. I think it probably clearly placed him at this point, maybe like it's definitely day 2, right? But probably more late day 2 into day 3 type of player, right? Because people are going to talk about potentially his physical limitations at the end of the day, right? Next up, we're going to go with Shamar Turner, the interior defensive lineman from Texas A&M, in the club, out of the club.
Shamar Turner out of the club this week, Keith. In this game, like he was just he was not really effective in the pass rush. He only had one hurry on the seat on the night for Texas A&M in this game against Auburn, and he had a pass rush win rate of 4%. Like that is one of the lowest ones that I've seen from a big time name, especially like Shamar Turner. But then also, like, you look at the fact that like Jarquez Hunter had himself another running back to remember in this class, right? 28 for 130 and 3 rushing touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like he's stacking it up, running toting the rock for that Auburn defense. And yeah, Shamar Turner just wasn't really effective overall in this game, man. And I didn't expect to see that from him. I actually thought Texas A&M was going to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say win. I thought he was going to run away with it because of that D-line. Marcel Reed, like Peyton Thorne in that offense, pass offense is very, very minimal production and success. But no, Shamar Turner's not getting in this week, Keith.
Yeah, okay, well, it's just crazy, DP, because that Texas A&M front, you see these big guys that are super talented. And then you go all the way back to like DeMarvin Leal. Then you talk about Nick Scourton now, right? And then you got Shamar Turner and you got Shamar Stewart, and they all kind of run the same range of 280 pounds, good athletes. But it seems like there are times where they do so much that it doesn't allow them to just focus in on one craft, right? Like they just move along the front so much and do so many different things. So I think it's potentially good from a scheming perspective, but when it goes to like development and them being able to be consistent in what they do, I think it potentially takes away a little bit from that. All right, DP, let's keep this thing going. Last guy for this week, we're gonna go with Mansour Delane. Is he in the club, out of the club?
Well, he's out of the club this week, Keith. Like Duke, our guy, Malik Murphy over there, Duke had like he had no fear targeting Mansour. He targeted him 10 times. Mansour gave up 5 catches, 152 yards through the air. The average yards allowed per reception was 30.4. He allowed 5 first downs in coverage, and he gave up 2 receiving touchdowns. This was a rough outing for him, Keith, and I feel like this has kind of been trending in this way for him the past couple weeks, or past month or so. He's been giving up more. Like he's given the last 3 games. Like he has 7. He's charted for 7 total touchdowns allowed in the season, and 4 of his 7 has happened the last 3 games. Wow. So it's like he's been, and the guy that has at one point was getting. Like even back into the first round hype, especially when Shavon went down and Benjamin Morrison went down. Yeah, people like really, hey, I'm buying in. And he had a good 2023 season, but 2024 has not been kind to him, especially down the last month or so. So no, Mansour's not in the club this week, Keith.
Okay, well, DP, that wraps up Dame's dudes for this week. We had a couple guys make it in, but I feel like you kicked most of them out, DP. You kicked most of them out the club, but it is what it is. Everybody
gotta play better.
Everybody gets a chance next week. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast all by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listener is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. On tomorrow's episode, guys, we're bringing it back. Rookie report. How are these 2024 NFL rookies performing a couple weeks after our last rookie report? Bo Nix, Caleb Williams with a new OC, Thomas Brown, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. We're going to talk about those quarterbacks for sure. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.